Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Demonland podcast. With me again and joining me back on the show, Grapeviney. Welcome.
And good evening to all the Demonland listeners out there. It's good to be back. Missed last week's episode, so picked a good week to come back, given the events, given the great win over in Adelaide.
Yeah, what a week to come back to the show, and what a week it was. What a win! I mean, no one would have given us any chance, least of all myself, going over there playing top of the table team. But yeah, what an absolute great win.
It was a ripper. It was, people are saying the best win in 10 years, and I think Robbo said on 360 last night or the night before that it was the best win he's seen all year. So, look, I always write a few notes before we go on air just about the game that's gone, so that I can sort of order my thoughts. And I nearly wrote a full page because it was hard not to laud the efforts of every single player that played on the weekend. It was really a team performance, and probably the most complete sort of performance that we've been able to put together, not just in terms of the four quarters, but the defence was superb, and yet at the same time our attack was superb too, and we kicked 17 goals, which was a good score.
Well, what is the best way for us to sort of tackle, pardon the pun, that for this week? Reviewing the game, because I really don't want to miss out on any of the players, because there were a lot of players who put in a fantastic effort. So I don't know. Do we? Have you, with your notes, have you sort of earmarked a couple of players for us to talk about?
I've earmarked almost the whole team, but I guess if you're talking in the broader sense, the tackling and the pressure, which every player, brought to Saturday night's game was just sensational. I think it was only the sixth time that we've had more than 90 tackles. Viney had 12, Oliver had 10, which are huge numbers.
Yep.
Sam Wiedemann, who's been criticised previously for not sort of getting involved in defensive pressure, had 5 tackles, which is great for a key position player.
Yeah.
But it was the way he tackled, wasn't it? They were such strong tackles, and I think he got rewarded for one or two of them. So that sort of effort right across the board is noteworthy, isn't it?
There was one tackle in particular that he did, I think, on Sloane, which was just an absolute ripper, and I'm pretty sure he was rewarded for that one.
Yes, he did. Yep. Yeah, that was a ripper, which has been shown on the highlights quite a few times. But there were performances, great performances all over the ground, weren't there?
Yeah.
Bernie obviously on Sloane, Jetta on Betts, and Frost on Tex Walker too. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about Bernie and the role that he played. This was a role that I think is his best role and his best asset for us at the club, is as the tagger. And there's been some talk over the past few weeks whether the tagging role has disappeared out of football, but I still think it's very important, and I would like to see him tag more often.
You're not the Lone Ranger there, and some of his best games for Melbourne have been in that tagging role. There was the game against Dangerfield, which everyone likes to bring up. But he got really good help, didn't he, from the other midfielders. I know they pointed out on 360 Jordan Lewis running past Sloane before the ball bounced and giving him one. And I noticed just watching the replay that Jones and Viney did the same thing. Every time they went past him, just, hip and shoulder, and let him know that they were there. And how annoying would that be? You've got Bernie Vince wearing you like a glove when the ball's in play, and then every time the ball stops, you've got Jack Viney running into you. It'd be enough to drive anyone mad, I'd say. So There was obviously, that was obviously sort of to instruction. Let's all target Sloan, and that really worked, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think he got 11 touches,
And I don't see,
nothing.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that as long as they're not being dirty and sort of gut punching him or anything like that. Keep it fair. I don't see anything wrong with everyone giving him a little hip and shoulder, a little bump as they walk past, or maybe a bit of an elbow to the arm. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yep, and he was completely ineffectual. So, job well done to Bernie, the others, and Goody for going with it too.
And it wasn't just a Sloan. Because of our ferocity and attack on the ball, they would just look like stunned mullets half the time. There was a piece of play going out of they were taking the ball out of the back line and they were moving it a bit, but they had nowhere to kick to up forward. And it was the tackle which Oliver did on the boundary line where he was rewarded. They just, because of, and I saw them highlighted on one of the footy shows this week, that every time one of their players got the ball, one of our players just streamed at them, to get a tackle. And often maybe we didn't get the tackle, but the fact that they had to quickly get a handball out of there just, sort of destroyed. They didn't know where to go with the ball. So
well, that's exactly right. And we saw they just couldn't get their game going from the very first bounce right until the end. It just seemed, I don't know whether there was a high number of stoppages, but it seemed like every time they wanted to move the ball, we were able to stop them. And they weren't able to get any momentum going or any of that run that they get off half back and through the middle. We just completely shut that down and shut it down for, not the entire night. There was that 15-minute patch in the second quarter where they got out a little bit and our intensity dropped. But for the rest of the night, they could not get the ball moving, and it was all due to it, all down to the tackling and the pressure and the intensity.
Yeah, and we'll probably touch on that period, that lapsing period, shortly. But that ferocity that we're talking about, it was definitely highlighted by the hardness that Jaden Hunt went in for the ball when he got, he just, it wasn't that he got cleaned up by, what's their ruckman's name?
Sauce.
Yeah, I know, Sauce Jacobs, Sam Jacobs. It wasn't that he got, he did a dirty bump. Jaden Hunt just ran straight into him at a million miles an hour. And yeah, I mean, all right, he got injured, but it was that ferocity that really was the highlight, of our game on the weekend.
Well, that we got a goal in that passage of play. So while Jaden was lying there completely out cold, we went forward and scored. So it was a kamikaze type run, and it looked really serious at the beginning. Obviously, he didn't move at all, so it was good when he waved on the way off, and then we saw not long after that he was up and about in the room, so that would have been
and apparently he was quite lucid.
A big relief to his parents.
Yep, and he's been training well this week, so it looks like he will play. So unless they're really, really cautious and they say, no, we'll just keep you for 1 week, it looks like he may play.
Yeah, I saw someone suggest on the board earlier, I didn't see Misso's injury report, but their interpretation of the injury report was that he might not get up.
Oh, really?
So, it might be a case of just playing, going extremely cautious on all sort of head knocks and concussions. So, we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll talk later about Angus Brayshaw, but given, the seriousness of his quite a few concussion injuries.
Has he been out of the team since he got in, Jaden? I think he's played. He might have played every game, hasn't he?
Yeah. He got last week or the week before against Hawthorn. He went off and we thought maybe he'd done a shoulder, but was cleared of any injury there. But I think he's played every game since he came into the team.
Yeah, and I think he's just steadily improved too. And I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet. He's just been really consistent and just sort of getting better.
Yeah,
with each outing. So
I mentioned last week in last week's podcast that I think he was either coming fourth or sixth, I can't remember, in metres gained, which was a stat I was sort of keeping track of last year with him because it seems to be, he sort of runs and carries the ball a lot.
Yep.
So, kudos to him because he keeps just getting better and better. And, he's a very good player. And we sponsor him at Demonland, so I'm very proud of him. And sort of every time I speak to anyone in the non-Demons wider football community, I always sing his praises. So it'd be a shame if he misses this week.
As they like to sing in the soccer stands, he's one of our own. So
yes.
Canberra Demons just posted that he thought Misso was saying that they would wait to see how he trained at the main session on Thursday.
Yeah, So I don't think they've made any decision on that.
Look, fingers crossed.
If it's up to Jayden, he'll play, but it probably won't be up to him. I think it'll be up to the medical staff.
We know that Max Gawn told us a few weeks ago that Jayden was one to watch, that he's got very good form on Instagram and social media.
Yep.
With Nippies and the Owl. I actually spoke to Jayden's mum at the footy a couple of weeks ago, and she said he's a bit of a grumpy bum at home. So it's there's another side to Jayden Hunt that the public doesn't see, and that's apparently a bit surly when he's at home with mum and dad, obviously. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to make it my mission this year to get him on this show. So stay tuned because I'd love to have a word with him.
He's good talent.
At some point.
I mean, we had a chat to him at the season launch, didn't we? He was an interesting guy and quite got a bit of a spark about him. So
I think he'd come across well.
Interview.
Great interview. He'll come across well on the radio. He can string a few words together, which always helps. So that's my mission this year to get him on the show. So who else?
Well, we should talk about Nev Jetta because he did a great job again on Eddie Betts, who Betts is now ahead of Farmer in a little bit ahead in games played and now ahead in goals played as well. There was a time when their numbers were almost identical in terms of games and goals played, but I think Eddie's pushed ahead now. But I mean, he's, as Jeff Farmer was, Eddie's one of the great crumbing forwards or small forwards of all time.
Yeah.
His name has to be up there, and Nev Jetta's got a really good record against him. I put up a thread the other day linking to an article which showed club-by-club figures of how many goals each club has conceded to Eddie Betts in their past 4 encounters with Adelaide, and we're at the top of the table, or we're at the bottom of the table.
Yes,
so
which is the way you
in
want
4
to be.
games we've only conceded 6 goals, and I think the highest might have been Essendon on about 19. So we know that Eddie can tear teams apart, and they scored those 4 games at about 2-2. So 2 to Eddie and 2 to Nev. And so to even break even against a player of that quality over a sort of a sustained period is, another feather in the cap of the man who everyone says is underrated, but he's not underrated because we all know that he's supposedly underrated, so we do rate him.
Yeah, and I think he's starting to be rated by the wider football community as well. Still not quite where we probably want him to be rated, but I'm happy for him to fly under the radar a little bit longer. Yeah,
I mean, he should be in sort of, his name should definitely be thereabouts when you're sort of talking about the All-Australian team. Maybe his profile isn't up there with some others. But the thing about Eddie is, and particularly when you're playing over in Adelaide, and this is another thing that was so good about the performance the other night, it's so easy for the momentum to change over there. You only need 2 quick goals in a row, and bang, the crowd's back into it.
Yeah, the 19th
and then the players get a lift, and they think, yep, we're 5 goals down, but we can do this. And we just did not even give them a sniff of being able to get that kind of momentum the other night. And Nev keeping Eddie quiet was a big part of that, because Eddie, more than anyone, can change the game in just a couple of minutes.
And when you talk about the best small forwards in the league, there's one guy on our team who really never gets a look in when you're talking from an AFL, wider. Again, I bring up the AFL community at large. Is Jeff Garlett. Doesn't really get much love from the rest of the AFL, but you have a look at his stats this year, and he's beating them all.
Yep.
Particularly when you talk about his defensive pressure, which he often gets 1 or 2 goals a week as a direct result of.
Well, thankfully he is getting a bit of love now, because Destroy All put up a thread last night. Jeff Garlett, give him some love.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's rallied around that thread, because he has. It's definitely been... Look, he had a good season in 2015 and kicked 40 goals, but he's going to, the way he's going, he's going to smash that this year and kick, it's looking like above 50 the way it's going. But he's just been really consistent this year through games rather than sort of drifting in and out. And his, as you said, his defensive pressure has really improved. He's getting reward for effort, at least one tackle a game that usually ends up in a goal, and as we talked about the other week, his goal kicking's really improved too. So he's lifted another level, Jeff, and we will forever be eternally grateful to Carlton for letting him go.
Yeah, we got him for bargain basement prices. We got him for, and thank Mick Malthouse for that one.
He's great to watch. I mean, you've got to spread your love around the team these days. There's so many good players, but Jeffy's up there with my favourites, because when he's on song,
he's exciting.
He's really exciting, isn't he?
Yep, and another person who is exciting to watch is Christian Petracca, and I think it was a genius move. The coach made a couple of moves when we were down. And one of them was putting Petracca into the middle of the ground, and doesn't he just move? It's like watching a ballet dancer pirouetting around.
He's a bit. He doesn't have the right body for ballet.
No,
but he's very sort of agile, and he's also getting better and better game by game now. He was sensational in the middle the other night, involved in a few pivotal passages of play, set up goals, kicked one late with another strong mark right in front of goal, and it's we're going to be debating this for the next 10 years. Who's better, Oliver or Petracca? Because Petracca is an exceptional talent. He's going to be an elite player. He's got all the hallmarks of it.
He just keeps his feet so well. There was a passage of play towards. Not sure if it was. It was the goal that Viney kicked, snap around his shoulder. Before that, Petracca sort of kept his feet in a contest, picked the ball up, sort of got half tackled, bullocked through, gave a great handball out to Viney, who snapped for a goal. And
that was a ripper.
That's Petracca. That's
No, yeah, you're right. That had the best of everything, because he went in and got the ball, then had to navigate his way out of traffic, and then got the handball out to Viney for a goal.
Yeah.
So it was, that really sort of demonstrated what he's got. And he's more and more each week he's influencing games. So, one to watch with a bullet next to his name, isn't it?
So what did you think about the move of moving
Tommy
McDonald into the forward line. You know, he doesn't have the prettiest of kicks, but he certainly, he kicked 2 goals. He presented well, took marks. Something I liked about his game was 2 things that he did. He did this move on the 50-metre line where he sort of balked a player and sort of got around and did a sort of a short pass, which resulted in a goal. And then that little balk he did in the goal square almost, where he got one of his goals. So he really moves well when he's got the footy. Like, you know, he doesn't have the greatest kick on him, and we know that. That's something part of his game, but he kicked 2 goals, he took some great marks, and it was a great move by the coach.
And I think Bernie Vince had a bit of a dig at him and said even the goals that he's kicked from the square have been floaters.
They were. And
I think the one the other night was again.
Yeah.
But look, it doesn't matter how you get them, does it? They all count. But look, it was a great move, and it paid immediate dividends. Straight away he was in the game, 2 goals, I think 2 assists. And look, you know, Goody and the coaches have had to, have had to be a little bit innovative with the injuries to the ruckman and Jesse being absent. They've done really well. Most of those moves have paid off. Jaden Hunt to the forward line the other week also paid immediate dividends. And look, it's not. There's been discussion on Demonland this week that maybe Tommy should move forward permanently. I can't see that happening.
No, and I'm happy with them making moves as required. I don't think there's going to be times where we need Tommy, to play in defence on the best, defender out there, depending on who we're playing. But there's other times when things aren't going right, we can, mix things around. And, that's... I don't want anyone to have a permanent position. Yeah, I don't want anyone to have a permanent position. Same with Petrarca. I don't want him to always play in the midfield. I'm happy for him to play up forward and put him into the midfield when we need him. Same can be said for when Jesse's back, and I would like to see him play up the ground. Sometimes throw him in the middle. It should all be fluid, and no one should have a set position and as required.
Yeah, well, you want players to be able to play multiple roles, and particularly if you're having a bad day. Then your ability to shake things up and throw a player here and there and just shift things around a little bit can be the difference between winning and losing. So thumbs up, more versatility the better.
Now you weren't here last week, and we discussed Jack Viney finding some of that early 2016 form, and he certainly still had that form, on show on Saturday night. What a great game he had.
Yeah, he was superb. Without a doubt the best player on the ground. Got the 10 coaches' votes.
Second week in a row?
Second week in a row without much... there wouldn't have been too much debate about that, and kicked a nice right foot snap goal, the Petrarca goal that we talked about a few months ago. And he just looks a completely different player to what we saw early in the season. We can only speculate that maybe he was still getting his injury right, or that he was perhaps encumbered in some other way, but back to his very best the past couple of weeks, and he's a really, really good player. I thought when he first came to the club, I thought he was only going to get so good. I thought he was maybe a bit limited, but he's smashed those ceilings, for me anyway, a couple of years ago. And he's become, he's one of the competition's better midfielders. I thought Jones also had a really good game. Both of them, both great games, and both showed a lot of leadership. I think they both been questioned early in the season about about the leadership and even having the 2 captains. But Jones was, tackled as well as anyone else, and I think he kicked 2 goals in the first half, which were also really important.
Yeah.
And the two of them both played really well and led from the front.
Yeah, I think Jones is, really, he's relishing the opportunity of having guys like, Jordan Lewis in the team, having Oliver step up in the middle and Jack Viney in the middle as well, because he can sort of play, off a wing and still contribute the same hardness that he always does, and pop up and kick those goals, and his game is just getting better and better with the added additions to our team.
Yeah, definitely. Like a good wine, Jonesy, as you say, getting better and better with age. So, absolutely.
I hope those sirens are not for you. I hope those sirens are not for you. I can hear in the background.
Bear with me. I've just got to duck out for a tick. We should talk about Sam Frost.
Yeah, I was just about to say 2 backmen that really were highlights for me in our back half were Sam Frost and Michael Hibberd, and so Sam Frost, go for it.
Well, it'd be interesting to look at his metres gained statistics, particularly over the last 2 weeks, because he's just running and running, and a little bit like Jaden Hunt. Gets the ball, really quick assessment of the landscape ahead, and then bang, I'm going for it. And I'll mention the word kamikaze earlier in relation to Jaden Hunt. Well, it sort of applies to Frosty's runs, because sometimes it looks like he's got no idea where he's going, but he backs his pace, and he sort of says to himself, well, it doesn't matter if I don't know at the moment, I'm going to get out there and I'll find space, and that's what he's been able to do. He's still got areas to improve. His disposal can improve. His marking can improve. But love the way he's taken the game on, and you'd guess that the coaches have told him to do that.
Yeah, back yourself.
To use his pace and athletic ability. So it's great to watch.
Yeah, it's fantastic to watch, and another player that's fantastic to watch, and perhaps our best pickup. We've got 2 great pickups, with Jordan Lewis as well. But Michael Hibberd out of the back line is just superb. When the ball's in his hands, you can breathe easy. And I think it's his second. He got a nomination for AFL Team of the Week, and if he keeps this up, I see AA at least in the squad for sure.
He's been great. Hasn't played a bad game yet. So obviously reads the play really well, because he's getting a lot of the footy. He uses it well, getting a lot of metres gained. Just a really solid backman. An attacking-minded backman who fits into the team just perfectly. So to have him at half-back is it's a blessing for sure. Yeah,
and that's every time I look at him, I don't know whether I'm looking at 70s cop or 70s porn star.
Maybe a cop themed porn movie. So it's definitely got that look about it, for sure. So very interesting choice of facial hair.
Who else stood out? There were lots of them. Anyone else for you that really stood out as being, taking that next step?
We should mention Oliver again. It almost, I feel like it's almost a broken record that we're playing, but we're 8 games in and he hasn't dropped off the pace at all, and he might even be getting better. I didn't expect I didn't expect that he'd have such a sustained run of good games.
Yeah.
He's so young, and you give allowances to young kids because they're going to be up and down. That's a natural part of things while they're maturing. But he's only got one gear, and that's on.
Mm-hmm.
30 touches again, 10 tackles. Really, he's a strong tackler.
I can't remember looking at his stats, but he seemed to kick the ball a lot more this week. But that's just going off memory, not going off any stats that I saw. I just thought that he kicked the ball a lot more than
There were a few more occasions where it was just the obvious thing to do, and I think one of them was that quick kick up forward when Jordan Lewis was in space.
Yes. It was
which resulted in a goal. And then there was, of course, his kick, which resulted in his own goal.
Yes.
Which was a freakish goal.
Did it hit the post?
I didn't think so.
No,
I did see one or two times that I saw it. I thought maybe.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the times that I saw it didn't seem that way at all. And they review those things closely, so I don't think it would have.
No, it was a shame that he kicked that goal on a week. There were two other miraculous goals, so I think that could cost him his Goal of the Year nomination, because I'm not sure if the results are in yet. I didn't see anything on social media today, but I think what's the guy in China? I'm not sure if it was Dixon or Westhoff. They both look the same to me. But he kicked a ripper.
No, the other goals were good. Were very good goals too. And I noticed in the chat room that we're getting suggestions as to who else played well, and Petalenko again has to be among those because he continues to do his job.
Yeah, so you have a look at if you're just purely looking at the ruck stats, he got smashed in the actual hitouts, but he provides a contest, and we're not suffering. You have a look at the clearances, and once again, we've won the clearances by 10 or so clearances, and actual centre clearances, we've smashed them. It's not hurting us. I mean, you can say, can you imagine Max was there, how much better we'd be, but we thought it was doom and gloom with the two ruckmen out, but at the moment, we're not suffering. I think not
in terms of the ruck.
I think in the Hawthorn game, we really missed sort of a big man to take marks around the ground. But if you're looking at just in terms of the actual ruck contests in the middle and around the ground, it's not hurting us at the moment. And Peto's also providing, he's kicking goals. So he kicked a ripper,
I agree
from from a set shot, and when we needed it, and
we've missed Maxie's presence around the ground. There's no doubt about that. And there have been talls taking marks that wouldn't otherwise have been taken if Max had been out there. But the way the midfield's been able to adapt has just been incredible, really.
Yeah.
And good luck to Peto. He's. I just see that Destroy All says Sauce had the most useless 74 hitouts in history. In fact, they should be credited to Peto.
Yeah.
So I agree. Let's chalk him up for Petalenko. But good on him. The opportunity came up, and as he's probably done in all his time at the club, when he has got the opportunity, he's generally taken it with both hands and run.
Well, I wanted him in the team from the get-go, even when we were just talking, when we had Max and we had Spencer in the Rezzies still there, I wanted him in place of Wiedemann at the moment until Wiedemann, had sort of learnt the game in the Rezzies. So, I'm a big fan of Peto, and I'm glad that he's got the opportunity to come into the team and prove that he can be a useful member of the team. And I hope that when Max does come back, that Peto gets a look in and isn't just relegated back to the twos, because, I think he is useful to us.
So would you have him ahead of Wiedemann for when Gawn comes back?
Well, it all depends on where Jesse is.
Presuming that Jesse's there.
At the moment, yes. Until Wiedemann, sort of takes that next step, I was very happy with the way he sort of attacked the ball in terms of defensive pressure with the tackling, but he's still not taking the marks yet and kicking the goals. And until he can do that in the team, and I think he will be able to do that and he will get there, but until he does, I think Pedersen has to be in the team. But having said that, I think the way that Goodwin operates is that he's, sort of plays the young kids at all costs. So maybe Peter will be out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sign of a really good team when you've got players who are in good form or who are really good players who can't make the squad. If you've got a spare really good player in sort of, if you've got a spare backman, a spare forward and spare midfielders who are who are really banging down the door in the twos, then that's when you're in a really strong position as a team.
Yeah, most definitely. D. Old Fart in the chat room mentioned Salem, and it's very hard to forget players like Salem. When you're talking about all these other stars or all these guys who had great games, but Salem, really had a good game. Sort of did everything he needs to do. Gets the ball. He's got great disposal. When the ball's in his hands, you're in good hands. So, tick to him.
Very good. Very good game.
Another one. What did you think of Tyson's game? I thought he played a lot better than he has been playing.
I thought he had an ordinary first half and a really good second half. Again, some of his disposal and got caught a couple of times, I think, in the first half, but laid some big tackles in the second and used the ball a lot better. Laid some big tackles after half time and used the ball a lot better. So I think the trend generally with Tyson is he's been getting better as the weeks have been going on. So hopefully that trajectory will continue, because when he's at his best, he's also a really good player. So it's a strong midfield lineup when they're all in and on song. So happy days.
Yes. Just while we're still just talking about the game, two other players that I'd like to get your opinion of was Kent and Bug. Both kicked 2 goals. I noticed Kent. One of the things people were saying about him was that not enough defensive pressure. I think he only had 2 tackles, but
one of them was in the first 30 seconds.
Yes,
I remember seeing it right at the beginning and thinking, "Oh well, Kent's got his first tackle for the game," but he obviously didn't have many afterwards. I thought Kent struggled. I know he kicked a couple late and had a hand in a couple of others, but whether it was just sort of first game back and he couldn't get with the pace of the game, I thought he just got caught napping a couple of times. There were, I think, 2 kicks to him where he's in the prime position to take the mark, and instead of attacking the ball, he waited for it to come to him and as a consequence got spoiled. I thought it took him a while to get going.
But if you're looking at a position on the ground and the other person who had that position was J. Kennedy Harris, and you weren't here last week, but we discussed his game, and I feel the 2 weeks that he was in, or 3 weeks, I'm not sure, he looked a little bit lost, and he was dropping marks, he wasn't getting the ball, he definitely wasn't kicking goals, and you see Kent, he's had 19 possession, he's kicked 2 goals, so as a small forward, he's done his job. I don't know.
And it looked, no question, he played better than what the hyphen did. Well, he was in the team, so I definitely at the moment prefer Kent over Kennedy Harris and even Ben Kennedy too. But that looks like he's a little bit sort of further back. So that was Kent, and who was the other one?
Well, there's even another two you might talk about, Bug and Hannon. You can Bug.
Yeah, look, Bug played a really good game. I thought he was back to the best of his 2016 form.
He only had 11 possessions, did kick 2 goals.
There you go. It's funny how I guess the goals
took a great mark.
He took a good mark, but he kicked a goal at an important time in the second. That was our first goal after they'd kicked 5 in a row. So that's what he was able to do last year a few times.
Yeah,
just find a little hole in the forward line, get a short little kick, and then kick it, then convert. So. I thought he played better than the week before, that's for sure. I guess, 11 possessions isn't much, but he had a good 11 possession
Well,
game.
that's the thing. I think he didn't have a lot of possessions, but you noticed him. Like, I noticed him a lot, and when I actually just now looked at his stats, I was actually surprised, as I think you were, to hear and to see that he only had 11 possessions. So, he sort of, when he got the ball, he did something with it, so I guess that's why we noticed it.
Yeah, look, he was really quick to move it on after taking that good mark in the third, and I think he set up...
Yeah, that was good vision.
The kick to Petraka, who then gave the handball off to Peto. So,
that was great vision. So he kicked the 2, he definitely contributed to another one.
Yeah, George on the outer says that Bug was an absolute pest all game, which we know that about him.
And that's good too. That's a stat that's not, you can't measure, but it's important.
Drove the Adelaide players mad, and most of his work was done behind the play. And I think George on the outer was... He was at the game, was at the game, so he would have seen some of the stuff that we don't get to see on telly. So,
And I am remiss once again not to mention the phone numbers if you want to call the show and talk about the game. Probably don't want to hear just us yapping about it. 0390163666 or Skype us Demonland31 0390163666. We'll take your call.
There were a few Demonlanders over there. George on the outer was over there. I think Vogon Poetry was over there. Crazy Jager O'Schmeara was over there. We've seen his the great video that he put together with
that was good. That was
young
nice.
son. What a game to pick to go over and watch them live and see one of the great wins in recent times.
Yeah, I mean, that decision to go over there, that's a ballsy one because, I'll admit I didn't give us any chance and, I was rapt to be proven wrong.
Yeah, nor I. My brother went over with my nephew.
Yep. They did?
And they'd booked it before the season started, I think. And then we were talking pre-match, and he was obviously very nervous that it was going to be a drubbing. And I think when Adelaide skipped out to 28 points ahead, they were looking for a possible half-time departure.
Yes,
even. But they stuck around. The boys came back, and they sent me a video at the end of the game of them singing the song. And it was great to receive that. They looked like they were having a ball and actually looked like they were sitting in much the same spot where Crazy and his boy were. So hopefully there were a few demons around all in the one spot together. So
yeah, I think on Crazy's video, I think he did mention that was the Melbourne section. I think it was possibly on the other side of the ground to where our cheer squad was, but that seemed to be the other Melbourne area.
Yeah, that's right. So, happy days if you were over there.
Yeah, I think the only player we didn't talk about, and he had a very quiet night, for my mind, I thought, was Jack Watts.
Not his best night. I think he's trying to take chess marks that should be taken out in front.
Yep.
So there was one or two the other night that he dropped that, he should have swallowed, and he does that sometimes. But he's been all right for most of the year, Jack. So maybe just a quiet game.
Yeah. So anyway, it's what a great game. Can't ask for more than that. The guys gave a almost 4-quarter effort. There was I don't know. Do we need to talk about the lapse in?
I don't think so. Adelaide have been really strong in second quarters all year.
Yeah, they were mentioning that on the
during the broadcast.
On the broadcast as well. So
it only lasted 10 minutes.
Yep.
It was, I think, 4 goals. So, and I think we dropped our pressure and intensity.
Yeah. I think the good thing about that, rather than dwell on that lapse, I think it's a great sign that we can, come from we 28 points down or 26 points down, 28, and to come back and not only get level again, but a 69-point turnaround or wwhatever it was, or 60, or whatever it, was just fantastic.
It was,
That's the new Melbourne, Melbourne.
I think the impressive thing was that we were able to do it within the 1 quarter. So it didn't wait. They didn't wait until half time, and it didn't require Goodwin's intervention to shift it. They were able to shift the momentum within the quarter, and as we spoke about earlier, momentum over there is at all the interstate grounds is such a big factor. So to be able to reverse that within the 1 quarter, credit to the boys, because not easy to do.
Well, I think Goodwin, was interviewed at one stage, and he sort of credited it to his coaching staff and the different forwards, backs, midfield coaching staff, and the job that they did in sort of turning that around and the moves that were made. So he wasn't taking all the credit for it. He was sharing the love with his fellow assistant coaches.
Yeah, I've noticed he's done that a few times. So, as you say, pretty keen to share the credit around. So it's good if it's true.
Yes. So moving on to some sadder news that we received this week. Just yesterday with about Jesse's testicular cancer. I mean, our hearts, thoughts go out to him and his family, and we hope for a very speedy recovery.
Well, they say the surgery went well, which is good.
Yep.
And it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because they're talking about 6 to 8 weeks.
Yes.
And it almost just sounds like another injury. And he'll be, he could be out and back within the side before, certainly before Vanders comes back.
It feels like
whatever mysterious ailment.
Someone on Demonland said that they feel as if Vandenberg's been 6 to 8 weeks for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's that's pretty much where it's been at. So it's just remarkable, and obviously, your first thought when you hear the big C word is to think of the worst.
Yeah.
And that's often what people confront. But once we heard, about this particular type of cancer, which has got the highest survival rates, then we also heard that it was detected early, and that he'd been cleared of it sort of elsewhere in his body. I guess that we're all able to breathe a little easier.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, fingers crossed, that it should be a fairly quick recovery, which is what we're all hoping for. But gee, you got to feel for Jesse, because
what he's been through.
Well, not just that initial moment when the doctor says, this doesn't look good and we better take you in for a scan. But how about that second phase of the process where you go for the whole body scan?
Oh, yeah.
You're there to find out really whether it's spread, and you know that if it has spread, then you're in a lot more trouble.
Well, there's chemo, and that's a lot longer,
Yeah, so that would have been an agonising ordeal for him and for his family to be waiting on the results of that test.
Yeah.
So they would have been over the moon to hear that he was all clear on that front. So I guess you've got to look at the silver lining in all this. As they say, if you're going to get a cancer diagnosis, this is just about the best one to have. So fingers crossed for Jesse. And as you say, our thoughts are with him because he's having a bugger of a time. And it was good to read, a few good things to read actually. His family is coming over from Perth to stay, not indefinitely, but for the next little period.
Yep.
It didn't specify whether it was mum or siblings, but just the fact that they're going to be in Melbourne and will be closer to him is really good for him, to have his family around at this time. And it was also heartening to read, well, not surprising to read that he wanted to play against Adelaide.
Yeah, that was remarkable.
Despite the diagnosis. Talk about a competitive beast.
Yeah, yeah.
But also that on Sunday he went to watch the boys at Casey.
Oh, wow.
Head you'd think would be in a terrible place and have every right to be sitting at home and moping and, saying to yourself, why me? But yeah, he obviously just he misses footy. That's his life. It's his livelihood. He loves it. He's very close mates with a lot of the boys. So to be away from the club for indefinitely for the next period would be very hard for him. So great to hear that he was in good enough spirits to go and watch Casey on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm floored by that. I didn't hear that. So well done, Jesse, and best of luck with the recovery, and can't wait to see you back on the park. And we're going to have to adjust to life without Jesse in the forward line. And I think after the game the other day, there was a thread, that was started, the no Hogan effect, whether, we sort of are playing better without him there, without having, just because it feels like sometimes when Jesse's there and he's deep in the forward line, it feels like we're too conscious of him, and that we try to kick to him every time, and sort of, I don't know if it's to, and then they instead of putting their
lowering their eyes
and having a look and seeing if there's another, what I'm trying to say is that when Jesse's not there, that we create a lot of goals, and when Jesse's there, we sort of don't do that. And I'd like to see us do what we do when Jesse's not there, when he is there, and not always just rely and bomb it into him.
Yep. I think that'll just come with more practice.
Yeah.
And once the team plays more together and, I agree. There's no doubt we lower our eyes more when he's not there, because they don't have that option of just sort of waking it up and hoping that Jesse can sort of pull in a contested mark. So the whole no Hogan theory rests on the fact that we've won these significant games without him. Geelong in 2015, Hawthorn last year, and now Adelaide. But it also it ignores the many wins that we've had with him.
Exactly.
So I don't think there's anything to be. I don't think there's any conversation that we function better without him.
Yeah. That wasn't my intent when saying that. There's no way. one Jesse in the team. But I'd also probably like him, instead of playing deep in the forward line, I wouldn't mind him playing, I've really liked his work when he's sort of leading up the ground and getting the ball, playing as more of a traditional centre forward.
It's not all the time,
yeah.
but he's up the ground a fair bit. So I don't know what the instruction is in terms of staying back and then going forward. Because Jack Watts is also good up the ground, because his delivery then into 50 is really good.
It's fantastic,
it might be a case of just they rotate it, and it might be part of getting off their defensive men and confusing the opposition's backline. So, but yeah, he gets a lot of marks up the ground. He's also a pretty good user of the footy going inside 50. We've seen that. So, a forward line with Hogan, Watts, Petracca, Garlett,
Wiedemann, eventually,
and then Wiedemann to come is very imposing, I would have thought.
Just back on Jesse, when he's sort of playing up the ground, he often, will lead up the ground and take a leading mark. I wouldn't mind seeing him lead a bit more in the forward line rather than go for the one-on-one marks, which we know he can take if he is one-on-one, but often they sort of get two guys back and, Jesse doesn't really get the free kick, get gifted the free kicks that other forwards sort of get in the league. So, yeah.
I
would like
agree.
to see him. But, Jesse's, we probably don't have him for the next 8 weeks or so, so... Yeah, we've got to just keep doing what we're doing.
People accuse him sometimes of being lazy, and it's not laziness that he's not leading, because he actually works really hard, and his GPS numbers would show that he spends a lot of time running. So it's not laziness, but he just needs to know. And again, he's also extremely young and inexperienced, and will only get better at picking the right times to stay deep and go for the big one and to come out and lead.
So, Canberra Demon in the chat room said, Hogan up the ground doesn't have the option of looking for Hogan in the forward line.
Unfortunately, there's just the one of him. Maybe while he's in hospital, they can try and clone him, and we'll have two Jessies. We probably won't have the salary cap to pay them both. So.
No.
Yeah.
And when looking at our injury list, it just seems to be growing and growing as the weeks go on. And just, from the weekend, Angus Brayshaw, another concussion issue. I mean, what do we do? How do we manage that? Do we give him a few weeks off, as people have suggested? Give him the rest of the year off? What do we do there?
Simon Goodwin was on 360 just before we came on air. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I haven't seen any shows tonight.
He was asked about it, and he said they're going to give Brayshaw a break. He mentioned 2 or 3 weeks, but sort of said we're not sure how long. Look, we're not neurologists. We don't have access to his medical records, and not every head knock leads to a concussion. Some of them are just head knocks. All of them are bad. There's, so we don't want that happening. But, people are just sort of saying, it's his 4th concussion or his 5th concussion, he should give up the game and should take a year off. I don't know what that's based on. Well, I do know what it's based on. It's based on nothing.
Yeah.
I noticed that somebody in one of the threads the other day said they'd been Googling concussion. I'm not going to take my cues, and I'm sure Angus Brayshaw and his family won't be taking their cues from Google. The doctors will know best. His parents will be sort of, will be there and involved in the decision-making process, and I'm sure they wouldn't let him play if there was some sort of risk of long-term damage or serious damage or permanent damage. So we'll be guided by what happens. It's unfortunate because Angus is going to be a really good player, and he's having a bit of a patch at the moment where he just can't take a trick.
Well, what is it? Is it just being unlucky, or is it the way he plays and he just goes in head first and barrels in? Like, I haven't seen all the incidents, but is it?
Well, one of them was having a footy kicked into his head.
All right, well, that's I can't do much about that. But what is he just putting his head down and just ramming through packs?
Certainly, I only saw the one on the weekend, and it looked pretty innocuous. It was almost a bump. It was sort of a shoulder high bump.
Yep.
So I don't know whether his head sort of, whiplashed a little bit. I don't know. Don't know the answer to that. We see players like Selwood's a perfect example of getting a head knock virtually 1 1/4, yet never seems to miss.
No, doesn't miss.
Always got to go off and get a bandage.
That's right. It is. They're in more danger of running out of elastoplast than anything else there, but he never misses a game. Yeah, well, look, we've got...
So, fingers crossed.
Well, looking at the injury list, it's good to see that Maxi and Jake Spencer, those numbers are coming down each week rather than remaining at the same spot. From Misso's reports, they're tracking a lot better than, sort of expected. Max is... Max said on our show that it's one of those injuries that they don't really have a time limit on, and he'll probably be back sooner rather than later. And I can see it says 5 to 6 weeks, so that's great. Considering when we'll just talk about Vandenberg being at 6 to 8 weeks for the last 6 to 8 weeks, because I don't know what's going on there, but at the moment, look, I don't think. We're missing a guy like Vandenberg, but I like him. But we've certainly got a lot of players that sort of fill that role.
He would have been handy, and that's all. These players all add to that mix, and he might have been used in this little period while Jesse's out. So
I think
but look, aside from Max, we're. Yeah, all our best players are really out there, aren't they?
Yeah. Look, I think the team that's suffering the most because of these injuries is Casey, and they got smashed on the weekend, and I know that if that injury list was halved, certainly the results Casey have had the last few weeks wouldn't be happening. They'd be well up there. But that's right. What injuries does, and I think it's great that we've got the depth that we do, that having all these injuries hasn't affected the senior team.
Hate to steal all his material, but Canberra Demon says that there's a story up on the AFL website which says that Gawn could be back as early as round 12
Queen's birthday.
That'd
be
the week after against the Dockies. So...
Yeah,
he told us when he was on the Demon Man podcast.
Yes,
and that's right. We do get guests of the calibre of Max Gawn in occasionally.
Yes, and I might say we're working on others as we speak. So stay tuned. Stay tuned.
But he said even then that he was things were tracking well, and he might be able to come back sooner than initially thought. So,
that's great news. Who was that? He said that. Did he say that on Triple M?
Yes, that was Max himself targeting a return in round 12. So
I do have the internet here, and I'm going. He said it was on AFL.com. Gone in an instant, back by round 12. So that's the headline. Melbourne's ruck woes may be solved sooner than expected, with last year's All-Australian ruckman Max Gawn revealing he is on track for an early return. Gawn required surgery, blah, blah, blah. We know all that. Let's see what they say. Gawn was initially expected to be out for 12 weeks, and Melbourne's injury list still has him at 6 weeks off, but he's optimistic about a quicker recovery. And this is Max being quoted. I've had a pretty good week on the track, and I am probably about 4 weeks away at the moment. I'm actually looking good for the Collingwood game in round 12 or the Bulldogs game in round 13. Wow, how good is that?
That'd really be at the top end of it, or the early end of it if he could get back for those. So fingers crossed, I guess. Yeah.
Wow, great news. I'll take that. I'll certainly take that.
Will there be any changes this week?
Well, that's what we were going to discuss now. It's one of those things people say don't change a winning team, but I think you've got to take every match separately, work out what the matchups are, and if someone needs to come in, they need to come in. But I don't know. I don't know who is there knocking on the door. I would think that depending on Jaden Hunt, whether he's right to go. If he's not, probably Melksham comes in. Considering the game that he had when he got suspended, I think he had 30-plus possessions. So I'm sure the coach would have been happy with his game and the stats for that game. So I think
almost like for like, isn't it? Because you have Melksham at half back, which is where Jaden Hunt usually is.
I don't know if I'd call it like for like, but the position for position is what you're getting. But look, Melksham, he's not.
James Harms had a great game for Casey on the weekend.
He's a possibility. He could come in for Hunt as well if Hunt
got 41 touches, and we heard A&B was also in very good form apparently too. So he'd have to be in the mix. If it was me, I'd like to see Stretch in for Hunt. If Jaden's out, so. Billy's. It's been 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's been the holdover player once or twice in that, but haven't heard a lot about him really.
Well,
so
So I think where we're going to be tested this week is in the rucks. Stakes we're up against an All-Australian ruckman. It's going to be tough, but we had a ruckman last week that had 74 taps, but it certainly didn't stop us winning the clearances. So if we can do, because this article I'm actually reading mentions that the Max Gorn article said we were up against Sam Jacobs who had 74 hitouts, but that didn't stop us winning the clearances 49-38, including 18-6 in the centre. I think that 18-6 is very impressive, and if we can do that against the Kangaroos, then we are in good stead to beat one of our last remaining home and away hoodoos. So that's a nice segue into something else I wanted to talk about. We've got to. We have a thread on Demonland which has been keeping track of all the hoodoos that we sort of need to break. And we had all of these hoodoos like wins in round 1, wins in Adelaide.
Some of them were a bit silly.
Some of them were.
We haven't beaten Collingwood by more than 27 points on a Sunday since 1942.
All right, they're silly, but there were some. We hadn't beaten Hawthorn in a long time. We hadn't beaten St Kilda in a long time. Adelaide in Adelaide. Anyway, out of that whole list, there are two more. There's two more home and away hoodoos, or whatever you want to call them, are left. And one of them is a win in Perth, which is the last one was round 1, 2004. That's a 12-game losing streak. And we will get an opportunity later in the year for that one. And the other one is beating North Melbourne. Do you know what our losing streak against North is?
I think I might have read, is it 12?
Yeah, it's 14.
14.
Round 5, 2006. So it's about time we beat them. I've been to many a North Melbourne game since 2006 and not gone home happy. So, would like to take the train ride home and have a smile on my face for once against the Kangas.
Well, arguably we should have knocked off both of those hoodoos last year because we had West Coast on toast over there and couldn't put them away. And we were, 10 seconds or half a minute off.
Snap goal away.
Yeah, so down there in Tassie against the Roos. So look, we should win this week. We're a better side on paper and off paper. If the players bring even 90% of what they brought to Adelaide last week, then we'll roll the Roos and roll them comfortably.
Well, I was as confident as you are this week when we played Hawthorn. I thought we were going to romp it in, and look what happened. So, I think everything that we did, all those good things we talked about in the first part of the program, is all for naught if we come out and play and play like we did against the Hawks early on. So we've really got to, as you said, bring that intensity to the North Melbourne game.
Yeah, look, it's going to drop off on occasions and for quarters and even for games sometimes. No side plays 22 games of four-quarter football any year, but you want to see it happening more and more frequently. And I think we've seen that. The quarters one statistic is a telling one in that front because it shows that for the majority of the time that we've been playing this year, we've been playing very good football. So, you put the ladder up during the week, the alternate ladder from an alternate universe with the close margins reversed.
Yep.
So, 2.5 goals and we're sitting 7-1.
Yeah, in fourth spot, but we're not. We're 4-4 in 10th spot. So, yeah, we've I want to make finals this year. I made no I've sort of told anyone who would listen to me that I thought at the beginning of the year that if we didn't make the finals, it would be a failure on our part. I don't know. What do you think? He's not making the finals?
No, I haven't subscribed to that theory. Yep. Most on Demon Land have, that it's finals or bust, but I think we're young enough and inexperienced enough that we could still miss this year, but still have a good season, like a pass mark season. So, next year for me is finals or bust.
Yeah.
This is the first time that these kids have really played together under a new coach. So it's going to take a little while to all click, and we're seeing it click a lot of the time.
Well, the only reason I sort of say that is that we sort of, we had a terrible game against Carlton last year. We were on the cusp of finals. I don't think we would, even if we'd beaten Carlton, I really don't think we would have beaten Geelong in Geelong to make the finals. But we were a stone's throw from the finals last year, which is why I sort of thought, this year was finals or bust. And, considering I think we're playing so much better this year than we did last year, I think our team this year would belt our team last year. But, there's that possibility that if we keep not winning these clinch games, these close games, that we might not make the finals. But it's still very early in the season.
It's a very even season. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, it is. I mean, you can see there's 2 games between us and top spot, and we've got a pretty good percentage still. I'd like to keep that. Don't want to get pumped by any teams and have that percentage whittle away, because it could come in very handy at the end of the year in a close season. So, I do think that these next 3 weeks are very important for us. I'd like to win all 3, obviously, but we definitely got to try and win 2 out of 3 over the next 3 weeks, because I'd like to go into the second half of the year with a positive ledger.
Yeah, well, the draw gets a bit harder in the second part of the year, but that could be a good thing. We know that there's no issue rising to the occasion against the tougher teams. It's usually those around us and below us that we sort of seem to struggle a bit with. So it's hard to predict all of that, isn't it?
No, most definitely.
D Oldfart is asking, observing that our poorest games this year have been at the G, and asking, is this an issue with our game style?
It's an interesting point. I was saying that to someone. We used to be frightened to play at Etihad and interstate, forget about it. But they've been our best games this year, and the G have been arguably our poorest games. Even the game we did win at the G against Carlton, we were pretty poor. So yeah, is it the game style? I don't know.
Etihad's smaller than the G. I think it's both shorter and narrower. We've played 3 games there. We played
Fremantle, Richmond. 4 games.
We played 4 games there. So, we haven't certainly haven't turned on our best there. Although the third quarter against Hawthorn was as good as we've played all year. Yeah. So, I think it's probably there's perhaps not a lot in it, and it's just a coincidence thing rather than something fundamental about the game that doesn't suit our home ground anymore. That'd be a shame, wouldn't it, if we couldn't win at the G?
Yes.
After all these years of playing our best footy there, and then it's our home and it's the home of the finals, and all of a sudden we're suited to Etihad. God, that'd be a nightmare.
Oh, it absolutely would be. I want people to fear coming to the G to play us, and anyway, that'll come.
I think that they're fearing us generally. It was interesting that a lot of the commentary around the Adelaide game was that we'd beaten up on Adelaide. Yeah. And it's so nice to hear that, after years of getting sand kicked in our faces.
Bruise-free footy,
that finally we've turned into the schoolyard bully. Yeah. And, you don't want to be tackled by Jack Viney or Christian Petraka or Clayton Oliver. These guys are laying hard and heavy tackles, and we're getting a bit of a reputation for it. So...
Good. I like it.
Bring it on, I say.
A couple of years ago, I was quite happy when a new coach said he wanted to make us the hardest team to play against. So maybe that's starting to come to fruition.
Yep. That certainly is.
I'm not sure what he meant by that, but I'm sure.
Well, we're seeing it now, so perhaps he gave birth to it.
Yes.
All those years ago. I've forgotten about those times, despite people still posting threads about it and bringing up the bad old days. I don't know why anyone would wallow in the misery of the past when the present is so positive, but there you go.
Well, that's, the life of a Melbourne supporter. It's been so ingrained in us for so long, the last 10 years especially, and, even, going back to 64, people are still, I see him post, screaming at Norm Smith for the Norm Smith curse.
Yep.
But hopefully we can shed the shackles of those bad old days, and, we're starting to see the seeds being sown for this, and we're reaping the rewards from it.
And enjoy the ride, because it's really exciting. I'm really enjoying watching us play at every level. When we get the run on, we look superb. We've got a very dynamic, exciting forward line. They're kicking good scores, so we're seeing a lot of goals. I mean, that's what more do you want from your footy than ferocious tackling, high intensity and pressure, and daring attacking game style. It's great, loving it at the moment, and even more so when you sort of think about where we've come from and how quickly it's been able to turn around. So, as I said, enjoy the ride, because it's exhilarating.
Yeah, it's amazing. If we can do what we did on the weekend for most of the games this year, I'll be one happy Demon supporter.
Yep.
And anything else that needs to be discussed this week?
Well, one thing I think we should mention, which happened today, was the state funeral for Lou Richards.
Yep.
And saw some of it on TV, and by all accounts, the church that it was held in, I think St Paul's in the city there, they said that it never would have had a funeral like that one, and certainly one with so many swear words. And you and I are of a similar age, and we grew up with Lou on World of Sport on the weekend, and he was, in the 80s and even well before that, and for some time after it, one of the giants of the game, one of those people that transcended sort of club allegiances. We're poorer for his passing. The other personalities of that era, Jack Dyer and Bobby Davis,
Yep.
E.J. Whitten and our own Ronald Dale, they were sort of just the giants of the game in the 80s, weren't they? You couldn't turn on your TV or radio without hearing those guys, and we don't really have those types around anymore. I mean, we've got, thousands of players working in the media, but nothing that really sort of captures what those guys were sort of able to do. And I guess in a way they were the pioneers and the forerunners of all the footy shows that we see on TV today. Lou Richards was a big part of that, and good to see that he was awarded a state funeral, very deserving. And just a little personal story. I saw Lou quite a few times. My grandmother, my father's mother, in her later years was in a nursing home, the same nursing home that Lou Richards was in. So
Okay.
I used to see him quite regularly when we went in to visit her. And his room was filled with sort of Collingwood memorabilia. And if it was on the weekend, he'd invariably be, his telly was switched on to the footy. And look, sometimes he was a bit more with it than other times. Was obviously sort of getting on in years, but it was a great thrill just to see him. As I said, when you sort of grew up in the 80s, guys like Lou Richards were sort of just, they were bigger than the game almost. So, good to see he got a good send-off.
Yes, Vale, Lou Richards, I noticed, every flag I saw today was at half-mast, so I'm assuming that was for him.
Yep, it would have been. I imagine they got pretty good numbers there. So, just a nice touch for one of the greats of the game.
Yes, he will be missed. And I think on that note, I think we will we'll end it here today. We did have a win on the weekend, so I feel it's only natural that we have a listen to a theme song, and I think we'll play.
Before we go to it, I was ready on Saturday night. I could have done a 10-hour podcast on Saturday night.
I did.
I nearly stayed up all night because I was so excited, and all I wanted to do was just talk footy all night. So
isn't that such a better feeling than the week before? Because when we lost to Hawthorn, I didn't want to read, I didn't want to see anything football. When we lost to Richmond, I wanted to get onto on air and just try and speak to any other Melbourne supporters.
You had an emergency crisis.
Yes,
show
I did.
That evening, so.
But that was that game. After the Hawthorn game, I didn't want to do anything. If I could have deleted Demonland off the server that's housing it, I probably would have.
Yep,
I'm on social media, so my feeds in social media, were all footy stuff. I didn't want to look at that. I didn't want to look at other games. But, contrast that, with the feeling of last week, and I'm with you. I actually did. I got on to Demonland, and I wanted to speak to other people, and you should have gone on air with me. So next time I'll text you and say I'm getting on air. But yeah, that's it's great. It's a great feeling winning like that, and especially interstate. I would have loved to have been there, but yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, we did win, and
Come on, Demons.
Well, we're not going to come on, Demon. We're going to play Grand Old Flag, David Bridie's version of it. I really like that one, and we'll play that to take us out of the show. Once again, thank you, Grapeviney, for joining me tonight. Thank everyone for listening. If you're listening to this podcast, we're live every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Hopefully next week I've lined up a very special guest. I'll announce it during the week once we've definitely locked it in. So there's that to look forward to. You can listen to us every week. Go to demonland.com/podcast. We have a live chat there. You can join us each week. So come and listen to us live and give us a call. I'd like more people to call in and give your thoughts and opinions. But without further ado, Grand Old Flag.
It's a grand old flag, it's a high-flying flag, it's an emblem for me and for you. Well, it's the emblem of the team we love, the team of the red and the blue. Well, every heart beats true for the red and the blue, as we sing a song for you. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on the red and the blue. We're the team played fine in the year 39. We're the team that no one can lick. And you'll find us there after the final bell with the spirit of 1926. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue, as we sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on